Hey, everybody. Good evening. Happy Sunday evening. Hope you all are having a good weekend. Tonight's going to be a real casual live stream for a lot of reasons. I've had a interesting day and trying to get a lot of things done, and not everything worked out. And I was hoping to be done a few other projects well before this evening, and I'm just kind of still working on some, which is okay. But I'm trying to get a few projects over the finish line, and it didn't quite work out. So didn't have as much time to put some thoughts down for this one as I thought. So I thought we just kind of have it as a chance to chit chat. Hey, Alex, great to see you. Hey, Steven, hope you're feeling better, getting some rest, and by not dying. Yeah. So, and cheers. This is my cup of coffee. I made that. You can't quite see the foam. I put a lot of milk foam on top. I love a nice latte. Hey, Derek, great to see you. Hey, Miss Bo, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining. Hey, Dissolution Pony Tricks. So again, this is going to be a real casual live stream. Just thought I'd chit chat with you all, and I'd love to see sort of your thoughts in the chat for a little bit as we talk. But I was thinking about the idea of like, how do you celebrate how far you've come on your journey out of Christianity, and sort of like the idea of celebrating your progress. Because I was thinking that, like, I'm working on a couple of different videos because of years since I escaped Christianity. And it was about the end of September 2019 that I left. And so we're coming up here on 5 years of that. I don't remember the exact date. I wish I'd written it down, but it's about around now. And so I'm working on some videos to talk through that process, like what it was like and some of the big things I'm learning. And again, had some technology issues. I was trying really hard to get some things done and already published today, but sometimes you just got to roll with the punches. But it did get me thinking about the idea of, celebrating your progress and thinking about sort of the different ways that we all need to kind of reflect and say, look at how far you've come. So I was just curious, and a few quick thoughts I'm going to mention, then I'll read off any chats that come in. But I was thinking that it's pretty important to me to take some time to look back, and I hope you all find some way to do that too. But just even if you're not journaling or something, I mean, some of you do probably do that, and that's awesome. I'm kind of jealous. But just to take some moments to reflect and say, like, when was the last time you just sat with yourself and thought about how far you've come? Like, not just in a passing sense for a millisecond, but in a way that really honors the great work that you've done in your journey. Hey, Tay, great to see you. And when you sit back and you think, look at how far I've come, look at where I was, look at where I am now, and look at what it took to get here. You're a different person than you used to be. You've come a long way. You've had a complete shift in your worldview, and that's no small task. So whether you're going to sit down with a journal or you're just going to kind of talk it out loud or with a friend, but just to say, what beliefs have I really let go of? And how have those shifts changed me mentally and emotionally and spiritually? And I think about the toxic cycles that so many of us would say we've broken, and the fear that we've overcome, and the boundaries we've established. How do you celebrate that? So again, I'm just going to read through comments as they come in, but this is, again, a very casual chit chat. I'm going to take some sips of my coffee here. But I do want to ask you to think about that. What are those toxic cycles that you would say you've broken? What is the fear that you've overcome? What are the boundaries that you've established? And how do you celebrate it? Or how do you think, if you feel like you haven't celebrated it yet, what do you think is a good way to do so? I like to think about what I gained by leaving. Looking back at where we were, we could argue we were enslaved by guilt, by anxiety, by this bizarre fetish for blood atonement, blood magic. And to think, wow, like, look at where you've come. You've come to a point where you can say to yourself, Yahweh, and the way he's described is really horrific and psychopathic. The idea of blood atonement is unacceptable to my mind right now. maybe some of you will reflect on your relationships, on your mental health, and the way just that you love yourself. And you say, look at what I've done. Look at how far I've grown. I'm curious, again, feel free to write something in the comments if you want to, but curious how many of you actually do write things down like in a journal and document it. It seems like this journey, for so many of us, the words in my mind come up of self-discovery and autonomy, reclaiming your identity, probably some other synonyms you all can think of that are more reflective of your specific path. But to me, reflecting on these things doesn't mean living in the past. It's just a way of honoring the path that you've walked and saying, I can acknowledge that every step away from the old life, from the lies, is a step towards something better. And I think that's worth celebrating. One of the things that I'm trying to do along that line is to start to get back to journaling. I do video journaling, and I've focused much more on the Harmonic Atheist channel, but I used to do a lot of video journaling every day, where I just pick up the phone, and it was very raw. It was just like, just pick it up and talk about what's on your heart for 5 minutes. And I want to get back to that. It's just Harmonic Atheist has really consumed my focus for a couple reasons. But I do think journaling is helpful. Stephen says, yes, introspection is awesome when you get a chance. And even though you don't seem to show anything outwards, one knows your own victory. Yeah, you know what's going on inside your heart. You know how far you've come. And it's interesting, some of the changes that are happening in us are so slow that it's almost like they're so slow you can't see them. Like, when a child is growing, you have a baby, and you're with that baby every single day. You don't necessarily see the change, but then you look back at pictures from like, wow, look at a month ago, or maybe, an in-laws come and they're like, holy smokes, like, wow, we were here a month ago, and because maybe it's a 2 or 3 hour drive and they can't come every day, but they come back a month later and it's like, wow, your baby is growing so big. You have to look back and think about where you've come from. Tay says, just bought a journal yesterday, actually, to start writing my journey down. Yeah, that's awesome, Tay. And definitely feel free to, make sure that you're keeping the channel in mind for whenever the time is right for sharing your story. But I'm glad you get a chance to at least do it in your journal there. Stephen says, I'd never had thought I'd ever be where I'm at. Fighting the internal biases is a hurdle race, and once over, you have achieved a great victory. Yeah, very true. Yeah, the word victory is a great keyword there. So many of us, it's just like, wow, look how far we've come. Ms. Bo says, I do celebrate it. I like to participate in things that would have been considered taboo. I just did a match for ending the violence against women. I really wish I had journaled my journey. Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know the violence against women march. I'll have to look that up. Thanks for letting us know, but that's awesome that you did that. I've got new intelligent friends and a new relationship because of it. Yeah, the change in friends is so big. That's a great way to celebrate how far we've come, is just to look around and say, like, all of our friends are different. All of our friends are arguably much, much, much better in that, they're not caring about us because of the bonds of blood magic or the same doctrine, but just because they actually care. It's great stuff. Tay says, I feel as if I've got the crown of life. Haha, freedom. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Really good way to put it. Yeah, crown of life. Yes, Tay, I did get your email. I apologize for not responding yet. It's just, life's been crazy. I will get back to you. I've got about 300 or 400 emails at least that I'm backed up on in the last month alone. It's kind of a good problem to have, because it's like there's a lot of those are probably people saying, hey, I'm interested in doing an interview sometime. Would you like to consider interviewing me? It's a good problem to have too many people waiting to share their stories and getting ready for that phase. But at the same time, I do not like being behind on my emails. But it's one of those things where I've had to conclude that literally if I don't just focus on the channel and get content created, I will literally just not it'll consume my entire day and night to just answer emails. So it's hard, but I will get back to you shortly, for sure. Steve says, I wasn't able to truly love myself until I walked away from the lies of Christianity. Yeah, that's a great one. I think that's becoming bigger and bigger to me. And I think for a lot of it too, a lot of us probably felt like when we were in Christianity, the idea of loving yourself was seen as very woo-woo, almost new age or mystical, and certainly sort of quasi-demonic, or at least prideful, arrogant. Like, why would you love yourself? You're supposed to die to yourself. You're supposed to love Jesus, like let him transform you. If you love yourself, it should only be the parts of you that you could say, God is transforming me and I love what he's doing in me, but I don't love myself. And it was very, very taboo to think that way. It wasn't even like a thought. It's just like, of course you don't love yourself. You die to yourself. Take back the night. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I know that you probably didn't mean it this way, but also I think, the night being obviously a time when most people are sexual, I think for a lot of us, just taking back our sexuality, whether you're actually sexually active or just taking back the thoughts in your mind to say it's okay to be who you are, to have desires and to celebrate the way your body works. It's a good thing. So I know you probably didn't mean it that way, but I'm using it as a launching pad for another thought. I think I'd celebrate it by reading about philosophy. It enhances critical thinking. Troy, that's a great thought. I love that. I love that very much. I was curious if you have any particular philosophers or branches that have been really helpful to you. I've found some things I've read occasionally from Stoics that have been really interesting and helpful to me. But I definitely would feel like there's a lot more I need to learn. I still get along with some Christians because I really like them. Yeah. Yeah, I have some Christian friends I get along with as well. We definitely don't have to feel like just because we leave Christianity that we have to disconnect from Christians. That's a good point. I sometimes get emotional thinking back. Yeah, Alex, that's a great great point. It really can choke you up, especially if you've had any big losses as a result of it. I get very emotional sometimes just thinking about how much it cost. It cost a lot in my situation to leave Christianity, just because the people around me definitely treated me as a traitor and basically said, if you don't love God, then we don't like you anymore, and you're in the out club. That was very, very, very big, huge deal in my life. And I think anybody that realizes how much you've lost, it gets very emotional. Let's see here. Aaron Parker, does anybody hate God like I do when my son got cancer? Essentially, I hate in my heart a God that I don't believe in. Aaron, number one, I'm so very sorry about this situation. That's awful. I can't answer, of course, for everybody else. I'm sure there's people who would say, yes, I absolutely could echo that. I don't feel like at the moment that I've had that experience so far where I feel like I could say I hate a God because I don't feel like, he's there. Like you said, that you don't believe in. But I could imagine that if certain experiences occurred, happened to me, that I could certainly be in a spot where I would feel like it, or just not as much hating God, but just hating the reality that we're so powerless in the big picture. We're so powerless to fix diseases. We're so powerless to fix so many aspects of our lives that we'd want to change. So many dreams go unfulfilled for so long. And in some ways, it's just a lot of us feel shackled, like there's just nothing we can do to get our lives the way that we want them. And it's very sad. It's very heartbreaking. Just the idea of, there's a verse that said in the Bible says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. That was sort of a motto for me in many ways. But when hope gets deferred, it does make the heart sick. And I don't hate God because of that, but I hate that life leaves us feeling so powerless so much. I really hope for good things for your situation. I'm so sorry. Hidnosis, hey bro, been watching your interviews for a while and never can catch you live. I got to go watch football, but just know listening to your interviews helps a lot for us to know we're not alone. Thank you so much, Hidnosis. I really appreciate that. Hope your football team wins. Inerrancy was my trap. I treat myself onto resources to learn from critical biblical scholars, especially on Sunday morning. I spent this weekend in Bart Ehrman's New Testament New Insights Zoom conference. That's awesome. That is really cool. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that I'm hoping to get into as well. But the resources at our disposal are just about endless. at this point. They're so endless. It's crazy. So really, really good stuff. Hey, Daniel. I think going back to Randy's for 1 second, I think just before, or besides talking about like what you can do, whether it's watching certain YouTube channels, reading certain books, I think too, just celebrating how far you've come in the sense of saying, I can celebrate the fact that I'm allowed to investigate things from a critical perspective, from a skeptical perspective. I'm allowed to read whatever author I want to. That's a big deal. For a lot of us in Christianity, it was just assumed that, when you want the answers to the hard questions of the Bible and to these discrepancies and yada, yada, you go to the apologists, and that's all you really go to, because they alone are really going to direct you correctly, they and your pastor. Tay says, I celebrate by listening to secular music again. That's awesome. Linkin Park just hits differently and speaks to my deconstruction story. That's awesome. Very, very cool. I can definitely echo that. Yeah, that's an awesome one. I feel like in some ways I need to get into that even more. I am funny. Somebody was commenting to me the other day. They're like, you're dealing with a lot in your life. I'm like, yeah, I am. Like their comment was to say, you're dealing with a lot in life. You seem to be quite okay with being, like, when you have to be alone, you're okay with it. Like you don't need people. And I was kind of saying, well, it's not as much that. It's just that I've gotten used to Christians, treating you this way, and many stories. Some of them are insanely crazy about the way Christians have treated me and my family, and I've just gotten used to being alone. It's like I don't like to be alone. I'd love for beauty and love and the relationships that we all yearn for. I'd love for that to be part of my life again, but I'm in a season, number one, but also it's very much true that I've gotten used to being alone just by definition or by default. And it's like you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be okay with being alone all the time, but I've gotten used to it. And it's funny, when I'm alone, I treat that my alone time, like when my kids aren't here, I treat it as my time to work. So I work often 12, 14, 16-hour days. I'm working nonstop on projects for the channel. And often it's like really quiet. Like I know people that are like, they have to have background music on, even if it's just like the brook that's, water, or quiet piano music. And I do that sometimes. But like, I don't have to. It can be completely quiet alone for hours. And I don't feel like that sting of like, oh my gosh, it's so quiet and so lonely here. But there are times when I kind of like, you know what, it is a little quiet. It's been like, you've been working head down, focused for 3 or 4 hours in almost utter silence. Like you need something, and then you turn on a certain song, and it's just like, wow, like this just, you feel alive all of a sudden. So I really get that. I also like very calming music. Like I listen to Cigarettes After Sex quite a bit. I like them, and some others that they just feel very calming to me. But yeah, and especially if you're from a group or from a background where they wouldn't really let you ever listen to secular music before, like that was, I mean, I grew up even like Phil Collins. Phil Collins is like, he's not that harsh. He's a tame man. But Phil Collins and Billy Joel were still seen as bad because they weren't singing for Jesus. It's crazy. I too get emotional, but they're happy tears now. That's awesome, Steven. Yeah, very awesome. I'm not sure if I can pronounce your handle correctly, so I'm not going to try. But I spend time with my wife and almost 2-year-old toddler instead of being up early at church at 6 or 7 a.m. It's so peaceful and nice to use it actually productively. That's a great point. Just recovering your Sundays. That alone is a big celebration. Like, I've got my Sunday back. I love that. I currently work like every minute that I don't have the kids with me currently. I work nonstop, but I'm dreaming of the day that I can get some equipment upgrades, and I'd love to at some point get a nice laptop, but actually like work somewhere nice. There's this really nice lake about 30 minutes north of us called Lake Lanier. And there's a nice, beautiful beach. And you can literally go to this beach of this lake. If you were to go at 7 or 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, it would, like, the whole beautiful beach would be yours for 3 hours alone. Nobody would disturb you. And I've done that many times. But it's just such a nice thought, and I'd love to at some point kind of recover my Sundays when the kids are not with me, and just still be doing some work, but just doing it at the side of the lake. So when I get a laptop, we'll see if that works out. But yeah, whatever you're doing, it's so nice to have your Sundays back. The day I realized I could have been stuck in this religion, I had a visceral reaction in my body. It was kind of scary. That's an interesting point, disillusion point tricks. I like the fact that you pointed that out. I think a lot of us can probably ditto that. For me, it was like a celebration of joy, like, oh my gosh, I've got time to recover. I've got time to, something to make my life meaningful. But yeah, when you realize that if the chips had fallen differently, you would have been stuck in it forever. If you hadn't heard that webinar, you hadn't heard that podcast, you hadn't seen that YouTube channel, hadn't read that book, if everything had just kind of kept you in the straight and narrow, you could have been stuck in this forever. I've thought that many times, and yeah, it shakes you to your core to think, wow, what a crazy journey. And also, sadly, to think that many of our friends and loved ones will be stuck in it forever. Makes us grieve for them. Oh yeah, Christians hear that you have left the faith and cut you off beyond just the church. I can say most don't want to talk to me at all anymore. That's hard stuff, hypnosis. I'm so sorry. Yeah, very, very hard stuff. Yeah, most Christians in my life have also chosen to not really talk to me too much anymore. I've got a few, but most of them, I don't know if it's they're partially intimidated, by the fact that I'm vocal about my non-belief, whatever it is. But yeah, it's sad. So sorry. Hope you're able to find a new community. I will just say this. I'm working hard on trying to figure out a way to have like a little atheist church, as it were, here in my home. For anyone that's near Atlanta, you're welcome to reach out and be part of it. I'll create like a little Facebook group or something when the time's right, and have people join if they want to. But it's hard to deal with the lack of community for long term. I'd really like to have some kind of replacement if I could. I'll come up with some kind of word besides church, but some kind of secular group to get together, to encourage each other. Stephen Mansfield says, I'm struggling right now. Too much to think about celebrating. It's not really related to, I'm guessing, deconversion or deconstruction. Let's see here. Yeah, your comment got cut off a little bit, Stephen, but I'm guessing you're thinking about deconversion or deconstruction there. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. And I definitely think you're right to, don't celebrate until you're ready. Celebration is something to do, and your body and your mind are ready for it. And maybe celebrating isn't even the right word. I guess maybe what I mean too is just to honor your journey. It might be a very somber, solemn thing, but to honor how far you've come, to reflect on it and say, look at where you've come. Whether you're talking about, like me, I'm in the middle of thinking through my deconversion anniversary. I know some people might do something like write a letter to their past self or their future self, talking about the journey that they've had. You might do something for yourself just to kind of celebrate, literally like as if you're having a party. A lot of us are going to focus on reclaiming our holidays. You might have some kind of daily or weekly ritual, especially regarding Sunday, where you took your Sunday back. Reading a favorite book, like Tay said, focusing on music, some kind of expression of freedom, just something that says, I'm not obligated to a God, but I want to mark time, just like we mark it with calendar and the clock. I want to mark the seasons that I've been through. I want to mark how much I've grown. I want to create meaning in this journey. And part of being rooted is saying, where have I come from? And then, of course, finding some way to creatively express yourself, whether it's art or writing or music or something, writing your story out. I think for a lot of us too, it just comes down to simple self-care. Like maybe the biggest self-care a lot of us could, or biggest celebration a lot of us could do, is just take really good care of your heart. Like if that's all you do, to take time to rest, sort of pamper yourself, at least in your terms of your heart and your emotions, prioritize your mental health, that's a big way to celebrate. So I really hope that things get better for you, Stephen. Troy says, it made me figure out how beliefs shape culture and expectations. The US is a very particular country when it comes to their religious beliefs, very different to religion in the EU. That's interesting. Yeah, I've had some British friends who've talked about that, how Christianity in Britain is more of a cultural thing. And of course, in other countries in Europe, they're much more atheistic, and it's just not a big deal. But yeah, for sure, if you're in the US, especially parts of it, I'm down in the South, down in Atlanta. There's a church. It feels like every other corner. There's huge mission organizations all over, mega churches all over. Feels like I'm in a pretty overstuffed part of it. But I always take comfort in these reports that you see every year or two that say that the group of people who are exiting church is growing a lot. So it's like, okay, well, there's people in these mega churches. Smaller churches are often closing. People are flocking to bigger churches. But then it's like they're also becoming less connected because there's 3,000 people around them. So they're not as vested in this because it's not like their community. It's more like a concert. So it's like I kind of see some of that is still, even though there's big churches around, I still see it as like we're moving in the right direction slowly. Steve says, I've been thinking a lot about the financial cost of Christianity. Some of us gave thousands to churches and missions. I know a guy who gave up a well-paying job to become a church planter. So sad. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And it's nice to be able to think about if we wanted to give our resources to charities or something that we feel like deserves it, but something that's from a secular perspective. I agree, Steve. Studying the tithe was my first layer of deception that I discovered. They don't like you challenging that. Yeah. It's interesting that I had a lot of studying of the tithe issue too over the years. I don't know that I would say it was actively part of my deconstruction, but it was definitely weird to me to think over time where you'd see these different churches where some churches would say it was originally actually like there's 3 of them, there's not one, it was like 30% or 33% or something. Others were focused only on the 10%, others are focused on you just give freely, out of the overflow of your heart. Just give whatever God puts in your heart. And the fact that churches, it's like, well, depending on which church you are, you could have a different sense of the messaging and certainly the legalistic, rules of the church. It's crazy to think about how many churches are so different, how many people's perspectives on God are shaped by those different churches. John Johnson says, yikes, I'm late. I celebrate every day by educating myself every day. Knowledge brings true celebration. Life is good. Great point, John. Thank you so much. Yeah, someone was saying something like that earlier. Just getting educated and taking classes, watching different things. We celebrate, we take care of ourselves by prioritizing how much we can ask the hard questions and say, for example, where did the Gospels come from? Where did the book of Acts come from? How many of Paul's letters are actually written by him, most likely? All that information that we ignored or that was hidden from us. I found I don't need people like I did when I was in church. I can do this on my own if I wish. It's good to be alone. It gives you time to contemplate life. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, alone time can be good. I tend to be a bit of more of a melancholy person, more of an introvert. So alone time can help me recharge in some ways. Troy says, although I was a devout believer, I was always in doubt. There still is always something in me wondering and asking why. Later, I found out science and philosophy. Yeah, it is interesting to think about how many of us sort of had this splinter in our minds the whole time. I don't know that I did. I was pretty much in it to win it. I think any splinters, I was pretty good at ignoring them, at least for the majority of my time. I would say that there was a big part of me that was not like on the fence in some way. I was really deeply committed to it. But I've known people that kind of said that, like, yeah, I was there. It was a big deal to me. I was really praising God, but I still felt like something's wrong here. I think there was a part of me that felt like any questions that I had, anything that felt like it just doesn't add up, at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to say, number one, God will answer your questions, some of them in this life, but number two, he really wants you to trust him. And he wants to be able to reveal to you in heaven these grand mysteries of what he was doing. And for you to be able to say at that time, when he does that in heaven, for you to say, wow, like, God, what great things you have done. And to say, instead of saying, I'm sorry I doubted you all this time, But I'm so glad you explained it, to say, I'm so glad I trusted you all this time. Thank you for explaining it. But I kind of knew in my head that you would. I knew you would wow me and surprise me. And I knew the end was going to be, I would just smile and say, that's my daddy, the smartest, most brilliant mathematician and poet and author and creator ever. That's my daddy, Yahweh. And I'm going to trust him from start to finish. But yeah, it's good, better to be in doubt, much better to be in doubt. Doubting Thomas was the hero. He was not the villain or the bad guy or the slacker. Alex says, this is the first Christmas I'm not going to church. It's going to be strange. However, I will be able to celebrate how far I have come. Yeah, that's a great one, Alex, to point out. I'm thinking through, since we're getting toward the last quarter of the year, I'm thinking through what I want to do for presentations for Christmas, and all along those lines. There's several things in my mind, but yeah, we're going to definitely be talking more about that. And I appreciate you bringing it up now, that Christmas can be very weird. It really can. But it's nice to make new traditions, kind of make it a new holiday for whatever pieces of it you want to keep. Yeah, it is kind of strange, but the strangeness goes away. Troy says, I myself am a gay man. It became critical to find out I was gay in my teens, but be taught my desires are wrong. They are not. Yeah, that is a huge deal, Troy. And that's a big part of going back to prioritizing mental health, really, removing the stigmas that Christianity wanted to put on us for so long, just, taking care of who we are and saying, I can rest, and I can also say, I'm okay. I'm fine just as I am. I always have been. And they can do what they want to while they've got me indoctrinated. But once you get out, like, your power over me is gone. You have no power here. And it still stings, I'm sure. I can't imagine some of the sting that you've had to face, some of the ostracization. And I really hope that you're able to continue to, surround yourself with people that build you up and encourage you. So we're so glad you're here, Troy. Jesus Delgado says, I have been an atheist since my teenage years in a mostly rural and Christian environment. I hope that secular people keep growing in numbers and America recovers its sanity. Yeah, that's a really good point to hope for. I hope that too very much. Yeah, thank you so much. So glad to think that you were able to get out early and keep some of the damage from, sleeping into your adult years. That's really cool. Angel says, I'm in tune with the present and tried to give to my parents. I love sleeping in on Sundays. I feel completely renewed. Yeah. It's awesome to just be done with that. Like, I have no obligation to a God or to a church. None. The amount of homosexuals that have been absolutely destroyed by the church is astronomical. Yeah, that's really true. And I grew up really fortunately, I kept my mouth shut, so I didn't really do much damage in that realm, but I believed it. I agreed with the party line that God had a plan. And it was clear from the Christian doctrines, like, God has designed it a certain way, and that design that he has instilled, obviously, heteronormativity, that's part of reflecting his character. And when you realize he's not there's nothing to reflect his character. And this is part of what's been in, nature for forever. Like, this is part of life. It's not something to be ostracized and put down. It's just, it changes everything for you. And you realize as well, like, I'm so sad for what we did to people. So sad. And yeah, Troy, we're so glad you're here. Robin Phillips just got in. I celebrate listening to secular music without any guilt feelings. I'm just celebrating every day. That's awesome. Yeah, Robin, if you're still here, tell us one of your favorite songs or groups. And I think Tay was the one that said something similar earlier. Tay, feel free to. Well, no, you did. You were Linkin Park, weren't you? Yeah, Robin. Tay said something similar, and I believe it was Linkin Park that she listens to. But Stephen, I'm struggling too much at the moment to think about celebrating. Yeah, again, I would say just maybe use the word honor. Maybe that's more, I should have said that word in the title, but honor how far you've come. Honor the milestones of look at, you're not the same person you were before. Whether it's a mile or 10 miles, 100 miles, however far you've come a long way. And it's worth celebrating or worth honoring your journey. Yeah, the struggle does teach for sure. Yeah, have a lion instead. I took up therapy recently. It helped a lot. It is amazing to have a place for yourself and have professional feedback. That's a really good point, Troy. Really, really good point. A lot of us are going to need to have some kind of professional therapist. I feel like I need that myself, to be honest, just to talk through what's been going on in my life, both related to deconversion, but also all the other stuff. And at the moment, my kids are my first priority, so I'm kind of putting myself on the back burner. But I know at some point, when I can find the time, the resources for that I do need to do that too. It's important. It really is. Yep. Most of us do need therapy. And for sure, while we don't necessarily all end up in therapy as much as we need to, perhaps, or should, or maybe it's because of time or money or whatever, availability. While we're waiting for that to happen, please do build your community up, because therapists are great, or can be great, especially a secular therapist, but they can't be there for us all the time. We all need our community to be built up. We really do. Tay says, I used to observe Shabbat for over 7 years, and the first Saturday of us not walking the walk anymore, I felt so much true peace and wasn't anxious. Yeah. You're OTD, off the derrick. It's crazy how that works. But I'm so glad that you're able to do what you want to do on Saturday, and just sort of still have a Shabbat, as it were, but a Shabbat for you, not for Yahweh. Ditto on the psychiatrist appointments, yeah. Hidnosis, I would be down to have some sort of convention to meet everyone in the community. I'm waiting on Myth Vision's cruise he promised to put on. If you start a church, you will get accused of Satanism. Yeah, exactly. One more thing, your videos are so helpful in what you've done with your post-life Christian. Your life post-Christian is incredible. Thank you for answering my question earlier and for being an honest human being. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that very much. Appreciate your support and encouragement. Stephen Boland, I know for a fact it helps, and I now take medication, no longer irritated by people. Yeah. Sometimes, taking care of ourselves and prioritizing mental health could include those kind of things, but whatever we need to do, we all need to get to the point where we are safe in our own skin, happy, and able to take time to rest and take care of ourselves. And only then it feels like, can we really turn our eyes back outwards and be altruistic and say, now that I've taken care of myself, I can also take care of my loved ones around me and, love on you all more than ever. Angel says, good idea. I should write a letter to my past self. Yeah. See here, 1 second. Troy, I think I put your comment up and then didn't read it. I'm sorry. Thanks, man. I'm with you too. I say hello to you from my home in Mexico, where there is a significant Protestant population. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard some stuff about South America that just like there's some versions of Protestantism and even Catholicism that are just exploding, especially the charismatic movement. I don't know if that's still as big as it was the last time I heard about it, but I heard the charismatic movement down there in South America is just huge and just booming, which really is sad to think about. Writing a letter to your past self, and then maybe even to your future self. Or if you've got property, put one in a sealed box and bury it, and come back to it in 10 or 15 years. Or the other thing, I know that with Google, with Gmail, you can future date an email, so you could like write an email to yourself. But then when it says schedule send, I don't know how late if it lets you do it as far as like 10 years in the future. But assuming Gmail is still around, then future date an email to yourself. Let's see here, awesome, Troy. I'm way up north in Minnesota. Whoa, very cool. I did a 12-week course in writing letters back to certain ages of childhood. Helped immensely. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's almost like you wish you could go back. You do wish you could go back and say to your earlier self, what would I say to myself at 5 years old and 10 years old and 15 years old, 20 years old? What would I say? And you can't actually do it, obviously, but there's still some catharsis that can be had there for sure. Hey, man, I'd love to get to know Minnesota someday. I had the opportunity to be in the U.S. for a year. Awesome. It's cold in the winter. Africa hot in the summer. Yeah. Yes, 100% take care of your heart and self-love. I never felt I could put myself first. Yeah, for sure. That's such a huge part of honoring how far we've come. Hey, Lacey. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Bipolar and ADHD. Aaron Parker, thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate your encouragement and your support. Thank you so much. Welcome to the jungle, Stephen. We get more here every day. LOL. Yep. I grew up in Texas. Church every corner. Living in Canada has totally changed my life. Environment is so important. Yeah, that's true. I do like Georgia a lot. I live in a little town called Alpharetta, which is about 20, 30 minutes north of downtown Atlanta. It's been great for me so far. I mean, I would obviously love to live by the ocean or live on the a lakefront house someday. Who knows? We can all dream. But for what it is, for having to live in your not perfect spot, if we could all dream about being a millionaire and living wherever we wanted to. But for living somewhere, where it's not that, Alfred has been a pretty good spot. And despite all the churches, I feel pretty good. It's weird though. I'm curious. I'm really curious if I did ever start like an actual church, like not just in my home where I just invite some people kind of privately over, but like if it got big enough where we're talking like there's 50, 60, 70 people that want to come. And eventually we were thinking, okay, let's rent a place and let's put a sign out front. Like, what would that do? Would people start to protest? Oh, there's an atheist church in Alpharetta. What would that do? I would imagine it would at least raise some eyebrows for sure. If anyone here is shy of getting mental help, don't be. Just go and get the help. The relief of living normally is unreal. Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting, but there's occasionally times where you have to say to yourself, like, you just have to stop. Like, just stop and let your body and mind crash a little bit and take care of yourself. There's been occasionally, not much, but there's every once in a while, there's a time when I'll have like a live stream set up and I will cancel it. Usually I try to cancel them like well before they happen, so no one's waiting, where it's like an hour or two, before the time, but I'll like, push it out for a week or two. But every once in a while, I mean, I'm even for other reasons. Sometimes there's reasons I want to like think on a topic longer, and like I don't want to talk about that tonight because I want to kind of dwell on it for a while. But there's occasionally a couple times when I've moved one where I'm just like, I mentally am not ready. I need to just step back from the edge and just take care of myself and whatever. I was going to say take a nice hot bath. I like hot baths, but it's funny with baths and with coffee and tea, hot tea. I like it really, 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 really hot, like super hot. And the minute that it's lukewarm, I'm like, ugh. So like I'll take a nice hot bath, and I'll hear of people who like soak in the bathtub for like 20, 30 minutes. Within 5 minutes, I'm like, ugh, this water's lukewarm. I'm done. I'm the same way with my coffee. I want it almost hot enough to burn my tongue. And the minute that it's not hot enough like that, I'm like, ugh, I'm done. So I often, if I get hot coffee like from a store, I'll drink it down within like 2 minutes, the first 2 minutes, because they're the only 2 minutes that matter to me. Kind of weird that way. Let's see here. But yeah, John's great word there. Yeah, we definitely need to get the help we need. And in the meantime, behind the scenes, also take care of yourself. Like, just really take care of yourself. You can't help the people around you if you don't help yourself first. I think of the monetary and quality of life sacrificed to the flying spaghetti monster. Yeah, for sure. And like Europe or the UK are not exactly atheistic, but secular, something that drew my attention when I visited such places. Yeah. And I think they're definitely growing, from what I can tell, from what I've heard. They're growing in their secularism by and large, which is great. Hey, great to see you move in silence from Portland, Oregon. Stephen, thank you once more for your channel. It helps me keep going. Thank you so much, Stephen. And let us know what we can do to help. If you want to reach out at all and have a chat, let me know. Tay says, I live in East Tennessee. Okay, not too far from Georgia here. So many Baptist churches. Yeah. I enjoy the nature in the mountains, but I miss the beach and living in Florida. Yeah. Often nature sort of becomes our replacement church for a lot of us. I know when I go to, again, Lake Lanier, which is the closest kind of big naturey thing that I've got here. If I go to Lake Lanier and it's quiet, and there's times if I go at like 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning, it's mine for hours. And I've done that several times over the years. And it's just like, this is my church. My church is looking at the beautiful lake and the beautiful sky. Let's see here. Religion across the board in our country alone makes more non-taxable money than all the tech companies combined, yet homelessness. Yeah, it is really sad. It is really sad. Yeah, they could end homelessness so fast if they wanted to. Getting educated, therapy, meditation are really good for me. Shout out from Louisiana. Thank you so much, Lacey. Great words. Yeah, education, therapy, meditation. I don't do enough of that. It's funny when you're a content creator And especially when you're first starting out, which I kind of am, even though it's been a few years, it's still not like I'm ramping up still to the point where I can call it an income. It's not quite there yet. Still struggling to make ends meet. And so I'm like always content creating. I like everything I could think of doing. I mean, I literally think of like, okay, you're driving to the store to get groceries. How can you monetize this trip? And I'm going to be doing so shortly. Okay, you're taking a walk to do this or that. How can you monetize your what you're doing for this walk? Everything is monetization to me at the moment because I'm trying to make ends meet and trying to stay focused on YouTube. And you realize that like everything is just like, go do more. I work 12, 14-hour days. I'm often like, if I wake up at 1 a.m., I'm like, okay, get up at 1 a.m. and do some more work and then go back to sleep at 3. It's work. And many of you might be in the same cycle, not because of content creation, but because of your actual like, normal job where you just have a lot of hours. You're just always working. And it feels like we're just always trying to get ahead in some way. We're always trying to do something. We've got these long to-do lists. And it's like in the midst of it all, even sometimes like my content that I'm thinking about might be an affirmation. Like I'm creating an affirmation. Like, isn't that kind of meditation? Isn't that kind of helpful? I'm like, no, content creation, whatever you're doing for content creation, it is not the same thing. Like at some point, keep that separate and do something just for you. That's not monetizable. You're not going to make it into a script and record it. Like it's do something private for you. And I would encourage you all, especially if you're in that any kind of similar boat, like do things just for you. That it's just kind of you and your heart. And I definitely say that to myself as well. I need to do that very much. If you don't meditate 10 minutes a day, you have no idea what you're missing. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and sometimes just also being barefoot if you can, when you don't have to have shoes on. That's been big to me. A lot of deep breathing exercises helps me a lot with that. Meditation changes our lives. On that note, what is it? The if you all haven't seen this, and this I'm not recommending this to you as if somebody is sponsoring me, but the app called Luminate. Have you ever seen that? Let me see if I can bring it up here. I don't know if it'll. So it looks like this, and you have these different things, but you click on like one of them, and what you end up doing is you go through, like you play the session, but you actually turn off the screen, and you look at the flashing light with your eyes closed. So you'll put on headphones, some kind of noise canceling headphones or earbuds, and you kind of like lay on your bed with your arms maybe sort of on the mattress, and this in front of you further out, and it flashes these lights really fast. Like it's using the flash on your phone, but it's super crazy fast, and it makes you feel and look like you're going through a tunnel. And they say it's kind of like the closest you're going to get to tripping without any substance in your body. I don't know what that would feel like. I've never tripped like that, but although some sleep medicines are pretty strong, I will admit that. I did have some sleep issues, and I took some sleep medicine many years ago. I'm very glad that I don't have any of that stuff in my system, and I haven't had really any hardcore medicines for like 15, 20 years in my body. But anyway, Luminate is the name of the app. Lumenate. If you don't have anything else for meditation, that is a really good one. You have to do it alone. You have to do it in a room that's very dark. And if you have other people around you, they're going to be like, what the hell are all those lights flashing in your room? But it actually is very, very cool. And again, I'm not being sponsored by them. I'm just saying I had a good experience with it. I think they give you at least 4 or 5. They give you 4 or 5 of them for free, and then you can buy the rest if you want to, if you like it. Move in Silence says, I celebrate by getting educated, connecting the dots on becoming my true self with the same dogged determination that I had while I was a Christian. That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. The same way that we were like, I'm going to love the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm going to focus on the gospel. I'm going to memorize my verses. I'm going to pray for people. I'm going to be in the word of God. I'm going to be keeping my mind on things above. I'm going to fight sin. I'm going to be pure and useful to God. I'm going to be an example to people. Like, I'm going to do it. This is too important to not do it. You take that whole determination and you say, I'm going to use that same willpower, that same strength, that same dogged determination, and push it, towards this experience of loving myself, prioritizing myself, becoming better educated, and growing and healing. That's great stuff. I'm still mad at myself for loving and delighting in Yahweh for decades, ditto, but I'm learning to forgive myself, recognizing I was indoctrinated and important information was withheld from me at that time. Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge, huge piece of it. And I will admit, like, one of the things that grieves me a lot is that I don't have time yet to do what I've called several times over the course of my channel. I've called it the big project. But I've got a big project, and it's at some point it's going to be more like 3 or 4 big projects. But I've got one big project that is going to be, it's meant to blow people away, and I think it really will. It'll be the kind of thing you'll want to share with all your Christian friends. Like, hello, have you seen this? Do you all know this stuff? And it's critical information, but that's sort of the bare bones basics. And I love some of the other channels in our community that focus on the mythology, but some of them are making very big presentations about like one topic, but it's like a 2-hour video or even longer. And they're bringing in all kinds of scholars, which again is so critical. But I feel like there's got to be a place where we say, can we just put it on the level that anybody, whether you know who Josephus is, whether you know all about the Greco-Roman mystery cults yet or not, whether you know all about Homer's Odyssey or not, you know about Plato, you've read Plato or not. A lot of people don't know this stuff. They haven't read it. You feel like, have you read Plato's Timaeus? I'm like, of course not. Like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Well, how can you understand the Gospels without understanding Plato's Timaeus? You can't. How can you understand the Gospels without knowing Homer's Odyssey? You can't. How about the Greco-Roman mystery cults? You can't. Well, for some people, that's just, they're going to be like, okay, well, I want to learn. But for other people, they'll be like, that's really intimidating. That's just too much TMI. I'm not going back to college for 8 years just to figure out what the Gospels are. That's ridiculous. It sounds like you're telling me I need to go get a PhD in this stuff. It's like, no, you don't. But those of us who deal with this stuff all the time, we need to put it on a level that's like really easy for people to grab. And that's in my heart so much. And to me, I can't finish it and post it until to me, it is utterly clean. It has been checked and rechecked by scholars and a lot of lay people as well, just for clarity. And I'm working on that behind the scenes, but boy, do I cannot wait to get that done. It's the important information that was withheld is so critical. John says the vibration of life is everything and can be had by anyone simply by meditation. Yeah. Aaron Parker, that's my daddy. Who's your daddy? Hidden Gnosis, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you for your super chat. I've saved so much money and tithes from leaving. I can afford to support my favorite YouTubers like this. Thank you, Hidden Gnosis. It means the world to me. It really does. Especially now, I'm trying my best to push forward and trying my best to keep in, be able to support myself with the litigation to be able to protect my kids from extensive child abuse and stuff. So appreciate your support a lot. It means the world to me. Follow atheism. It's not really worth celebrating to exit out of an absurd religion, more like a day of mourning, and only because the truth of reality is a very dark, absurd horror. Life is evil. That escalated quickly. I wouldn't agree with that. I wouldn't put it that way at all. So I'm going to say, if you're an atheist, I agree with you wholeheartedly that atheism is probably the most accurate worldview. The truth of reality being a dark, absurd horror and life is evil. I wouldn't put it that way at all. I don't see it that way. I'm going to, I think, put a pin in that and actually use that as a launching pad for another monologue or live stream at some point. But I will just encourage you to keep thinking about that. If you think life is evil and existence is just a horror, yeah, that's dark. That's really dark. It's really sad. It's very depressing. I do think nihilism is true, but you can't live there. If you live in nihilism, and if every minute the idea of life is a horror, life is just a cold, dark, horrible journey that in the end is just going to choke you out. If you live there, it's going to depress you. It's going to be very sad. Please take care of your heart. Don't let nihilism, even if you philosophically agree with nihilism, do not let nihilism take you to the point where you have no reason to live and you have just absolutely nothing beautiful that you see in life. I mean, people matter, love matters, beauty matters to us. And you're like, well, does it really matter in the end? Well, make it matter for now. Make it matter for your life. Make it matter for the people around you. There are children that need to know life is beautiful. They need to see you have a sparkle in your eye. You need to see yourself having a sparkle in your eye. Remember when you were a kid and you were waking up to Christmas presents. You're like, look at the twinkle lights. Look at the beauty of it all. Look, the snow is falling. Life is so precious. If you lose that joy, bad things happen, in my opinion. Very bad things happen. Please don't stay in that frame of mind. Just my 2 cents. Let's see here. I understand energy so much and how powerful the mind is. I celebrate knowing I can take control of my mind thoughts and choices. That's very huge for me. That's a great point, Tay. I love that. Love that so much. That's a great way to put it. The power of the mind to give us a sense of what we think is reality and who we are and whether we're important or not and special and loved or not. Yeah, it's just whether we've got a hope for the future or it's all just dark. Yeah, it's so much about our mind. It almost goes back to that comment I was just commenting on. Yeah, our mind is going to dictate so much. Keep doing what you're doing and pass it on to those you cross paths with. Yeah, absolutely. Peace to everyone. Follow atheism. I do want to just say, I'm not going to bring your comments back up on the screen, but if you keep telling everyone that everything they say is another delusion, we're going to definitely have to part ways. This is going to be a safe place for people. Okay. You can't just tell everybody for every comment, you're deluded, you're deluded, you're deluded. I'll let you stay on this one, but please make sure you're careful with what you say. James Apperson, one of the ways I honor how far I've come is by live streaming and other social media outreach to help others with their related struggles. Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome, James. And I still owe you. I'm going to make a note to myself. I'm going to send you an email the minute that we're done here because you and I have been trying to touch base for a long time. And I'm sorry, that's my fault. Aaron Parker, the money I threw away tithing. Yeah. Tim's a podcaster. Hearing from the circle is deep and it definitely affects you personally. Yeah, it really does. Enjoy Saturdays as well. Let's see here. Robin Phillips, I was a child and a teen during the 70s and 80s. I listened to a lot of oldies and disco and early rap. Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to listen to stuff and think I don't have to put it through a grid of whether the church approves or not. Thank you, Troy, for message support. Absolutely. We're so glad you're here. Let's see here. I'm going to wrap up with follow atheism. I'm sorry. Follow atheism. We appreciate you coming, but that's too much. Let's see here. Imputed righteousness. God has left his fingerprints in creation, and you take that information and suppress it. Okay, well, that is that is also someone that we're going to say goodbye to. If you want to proselytize, there's a lot of other channels to do it on. This isn't the place. This is a safe place. Very safe place. We want people to feel like they can talk about their journey out of Christianity, not get attacked here. So please take that to a different channel. There's got to be tens of thousands of channels where your messaging will be very, very welcome. Ian Wolf says, enjoyed your theory and why religion emerged the other day. Thank you. I definitely think there's something to it. Thank you so much. I feel like I realize I need to develop that further. That I definitely was like, as soon as you hear it come out of your mouth, like, I'm at the starting point, but I haven't really wrap this up yet in my mind. I need to take it to the next level. So I'll bring it back up again in 6 months after I've clarified it some more. Be critical and be yourself, your thoughts, your doubts, your growth. Never silence your critical thinking. That's my motto. Yeah, absolutely. And Steve says, Tim, do you think Christians in your life are conscious of the crimes of Yahweh? Do they realize that they're praying to a monster? For me, it was over when I realized Yahweh is a psychopath. I think they're ignorant of it. And I think they're ignorant of it in the sense that they're willing to do it. I have Christians in my life who I have seen directly say to their children that they've told their kids, I would stone you to death to obey Yahweh if you disobeyed me. If I was in Old Testament times, if you were, for example, repeatedly rebellious, in Old Testament times, it says to stone your children to death. It's probably implied there, or at least interpreted, that those are probably older kids, like teenagers. But still, I've seen parents directly say to their young children, I would obey Yahweh and stone you to death if you didn't obey me. So that's sort of the same thing. They're becoming monsters. They're not, at that point, they're not just saying Yahweh's a monster. They're saying I'm on his side and I'm a monster. Yeah. When you realize Yahweh's a psychopath, it changes everything. Jay, thank you so much for letting me know. I think I've taken care of it, but if there's anyone else, let me know. We're also going to wrap up in just about 5 minutes or less. Yeah, it's definitely not true. I appreciate you all giving him a little bit of a contradiction there. I think fellowship among atheists and anyone who wants community on Sunday morning sounds like a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for letting me know, Ms. Bo. Lacey Sophie says, yes, John, I'm definitely getting mental health. I've been in therapy now for 2 years. Yeah, awesome stuff. I'm going to move a little bit faster here because we're moving over an hour. I honestly did not expect to be here for a whole hour. So you all are awesome. I love your comments. My goodness. I feel like I after the live stream, the comments like stay up on my screen for a while. So after it disappears and ends, I keep them up and I go back and read through them all in depth. And it's definitely helpful to me to see all the great ideas. So it doesn't matter to me what the Bible says. I love people. I'm kind. I help those who need it. That's it. No savior required. Yeah, absolutely. Ian Wolf says, if my Chinese food isn't piping hot, I can't make myself eat it without another trip to the microwave. I also take scalding hot showers and baths. Trick is to have a super hot trickle of water going. Yes, agreed. I haven't used a microwave in like 25 years. I don't even know if I know how to use one, but yeah, whatever you need to do to keep the food hot. Chase says, not sure, Tim, you can see the troll. Yep, I didn't see it at first. I was way up higher in the comments, but I think I'm good now. But yeah, I'm sure there's a few others that from time to time. I'm going to eventually be getting some moderators that will help me to kick them out. It's a tricky job in some ways, and I need to make sure that I'm not giving people power just over like, oh, I just don't like you. You know, I need to make sure we're not kicking people out because as far as I can tell, it's permanent. I haven't found a way to undo that. So if like someone says, oh shoot, you kicked me out and it was an accident, I was just kidding, I was being sarcastic. I'm like, I don't know a way to put you back in like permanently. It's kind of, so I need to investigate that. But once I figure it out, I'll get some extra moderators to help. Annabelle says, I'm from Uruguay, still fighting to deconvert. I'm gaining strength since I've returned to exercise and do yoga that I had quit since for Catholics it was non-godly. That's interesting. Yeah, I when I grew up, yoga was considered an Eastern form of Eastern mysticism, Eastern religion, and that was definitely considered demonic. So yeah, hope you can keep going, Anna. Keep going, and if we can help at all in your journey, let us know. By the way, Anna, I'm on Facebook at the handle Harmonic Tim. So that's I've got like the Harmonic Atheist, business page, but Harmonic Tim is my personal handle. If I can be of any help to you, let me know. Please reach out there. Tay says, it's not about winning, it's about truth. What's the truth? What's lie? Yeah, exactly. I bet there's no Christian that knows where their word actually came from. Yeah, absolutely. Have you heard of Bart Ehrman? He's a recognized scholar and critical. His studies have gained popularity in religious studies because of his criticism, or so I heard. I want to check them out. Yeah, I have heard of him. I haven't read everything he said. I've read a lot of his stuff. In fact, I've got a lot of his books right on my bookshelf over here. I respect an awful lot of what he says. I'm a 90% mythicist, so I highly doubt Jesus existed. I'm going to be making a presentation on that too at some point. So I do think it's more likely that he did not exist than that he did, and Bart is not a mythicist. But yeah, he's still got great things to say. Great things to say. Tim, do you still mourn the time wasted inside Christianity? I sort of do and sort of don't. I would say at the moment I'm so busy that I don't have time to look back. But I think at some point it's going to hit me like. And I think the way I mourn a lot of what I do is connected to my content creation. So a lot of what I do is like I will create notes and scripts for things I want to say and focus on. And in that process, I'm thinking through all the different nuances of what I went through. I do that all the time. And I would say that's, to me, it's a form of healing, a form of mourning as I think through it all. I mean, it's, and what I do behind the scenes, as you could probably imagine, is exponentially bigger than what ends up popping up on the screen. For example, I probably wrote down 10 pages worth of notes and things I'm going to be presenting in the next few weeks. But 10 pages worth of content, a lot of it related to religious trauma, related to things I've went through. There's a lot of ways in just thinking through it is a form of mourning and grieving and healing. And so it helps me a lot. It's like, that's my journaling. My journaling is my content creation of sorts. But yeah, I think it's definitely appropriate to find some time to mourn. It's also important to say, what, it is what it is. Number one, a lot of us can get very depressive if we're not careful. And as I've said before, we're all going to get to the bottom of the barrel sometime, but we don't have to lick the splinters on purpose when we get there. It's like, yeah, this sucked. It is what it is. It happened. But where do we go from here? Like, let's have a positivity, not a fake positivity, but a real positivity. Where do we go from here? Lacey says, I still have periods of anger over the time wasted, the brainwashing, etc. Yeah. It's important to be going through those emotions for sure. Yep. Bart's channel, love it. He's got great stuff. He's got a great blog as well. I did not speak about this yet, but Christianity really messed up my sex life. A lot of shame and guilt for normal feelings. Yeah, it is. It's so crazy how much shame it gives you. And I was in a sexless marriage before. I'm divorced and divorced now, but it was a sexless marriage for so many years. And just that shame of like, am I too much? Am I wanting something I shouldn't? And then just the shame of masturbation, the shame of fantasy, the shame of just, acknowledging how your body works. So much shame, whether you're talking about in a relationship or just, your own relationship with your body privately. And it's just, there's so much shame. And to be able to get past it, like, I can truly acknowledge I have zero shame over my sexuality right now. Zero. And it's a big deal to get to that point. Big deal. Yeah, many people have been messed up by that. Purity culture did so much damage. I don't mourn it. What I don't like is the lies that were told to others because of my lack of knowledge. Yeah, and I don't like the fact that I was part of it too. Steve and I wasn't a pastor, but I did a lot of pastoral ministry, a lot of youth pastoral ministry, a lot of missions kinds of ministries, and I preached ultimately to hundreds and hundreds of people. A lot of soup kitchen work, and it's sad. Thanks, Tay. Appreciate it. I'm trying, and a lot of truth bombs coming from you all too. So right back at you. Without a doubt, Paul of Tarsus has to be the greatest con artist in the past 2,000 years. Muhammad is a close second. Yeah, absolutely. Behold, rational thought stands at the door and knocks. So whosoever accepts will be saved from eternal delusion. Yeah, great way to put that. I love when we can turn verses on their heads. Like, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the truth is that the Bible is not from a God. I just ran into a guy who left the church I was part of today. We had a great conversation. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool to meet people who, like, oh, you used to be part of it with me, and now you left. That's so great. I love it. Would have loved to hear that conversation. Yeah. Positive chat brings positivity to life. Yep, absolutely. And Mighty Sarlacc, I had a family reunion yesterday and had a respectful conversation with one of my family members about near-death experiences. I didn't lean in too hard because I didn't want to hurt their feelings for their beliefs. Yeah, it's so important to be respectful and to know too. It's like you know what is going to be worth it. You know what's going to be worth it to pursue it out. Bear with me one second. Philip, I've really beat myself up for letting Jesus down so much. I needed guilt. Yeah, so much. KB, thank you so much for joining us today. That's great. Keep it going, Tim. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. That's one of the things I love about this channel. 99% in the chat do not hammer people or criticize them. That's huge. Yeah, it is. I love the way you all care about each other and support each other. It makes a big difference to me. My big takeaway that I've learned cigarettes after sex is not just an activity, but also a musical band. Is that, do you mean because of my mentioning them, or because of, or you already knew about them, but just in terms of deconverting? Yeah, I love the one. What's that main song? I forget what it's called, but that main song that it's like everybody plays it. It's, I feel like I kind of go back to it over and over. 1 second. Apocalypse. Yeah, I think that's the one. Apocalypse. Yeah, I can play that song probably once a day, if not more, and just kind of feels like home now. My buddy said it's a cult, and we aren't taught about the origin of the Bible stories. Yeah, that's a big part of it. We're just not told. And when you look back at it, there were hints. There were things that kind of should have told us. For example, things like astrotheology, where you see Jesus saying, "I want you, the disciples, to go look for a man carrying a pitcher of water, and he will show you the upper way to the upper room." I mean, that is astrotheology to a T. That is clearly Aquarius. Um, Elisha with the bald head and the 2 she-bears and the 42 children. That's very clearly Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, and he's the moon. His predecessor Elijah going to heaven in a chariot of fire. That's clearly the sun. There's all these things that are like hints, but even other things where, in Homer's Odyssey, one of the main characters is Emmaus, and then and it's all about like, do you recognize who Odysseus is? Does Emmaus recognize who Odysseus really is? And then in the Jesus story, when Jesus is talking with the men and they don't recognize him, remember he resurrected, but he's like, they think he's a gardener, and they're like, why are you? He's like, why are you crying? They're like, haven't you heard about Jesus? He died and was crucified. It's awful. And they don't recognize him. And they say that they're on the road to Emmaus. Like, they just like gave you this hint, like they're on the road to Emmaus. That's the character from Homer's Odysseus. It's been around for hundreds of years. Everyone knew about it. There's clues like that all over the place in this book. Jesus healing the blind man. What does he call him? He calls him the son of Timaeus. Well, the Timaeus was the name of Plato's big book. It was like the Bible back then. I mean, the 2 big books, as far as I know, that were like the Bible of that world were Plato's Timaeus and Homer's Odyssey. So when he says, I'm going to heal blind Timaeus, or the son of Timaeus, he's like, I'm going to correct Plato. I'm going to fix blind Plato. It's just literally been clues all over the place. It's like it's you almost have to work hard to ignore it. But again, when you don't have a primer, when you don't know how to pick up on those clues, you just think, oh, like that's an actual historical man who was historically sitting on the road, who was historically blind, who really was the son of a man named Timaeus, and that's all you think. You just think that's what it is. Heather Clark says, I'm grateful that I no longer have Christians breathing down my neck, judging me and trying to control me. Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good thing to be free of that. And honestly, too, as you eventually get, not you, but as we all get stronger and stronger in our voices, we get to a point where it's like we become so powerful that they eventually just, pardon me for saying it, but they just eventually learn to shut the hell up. It's like you're in their minds, like you're too powerful. I know this Bible inside and out. I mean, I memorized thousands of these verses, and honestly, I'm about to get back into it. I'm about to create a plan to get back to making sure I remember all the ones that I did. I'm going to be memorizing thousands more. I want to be able to say these on the tip of my tongue. It's part of my job now. And I want to get back to it and memorize a lot more. I'm going to be memorizing whole books of the Bible as part of a program for myself to, always be able to bring these verses up in a heartbeat. And, it's very triggering, but it's part of, again, I see it as part of my job. But, at the end of the day, like when you know your Bible inside and out, and you can say, I can show you how garbage this book is, how much this book is just absolute trash as a worldview. Eventually they're like, yeah, I'm not going to fight with you. Number one, because they're just going to do the whole la 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 thing, fingers in their ears, but they're also intimidated. They know you know so much about it. Once you know how to do it, you know how to undo it. Susan Turpin says, Bart Ehrman is great. Heaven or Hell is very well done. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great stuff. Susan, that's interesting. Your last name. I was at Bob Jones University with one of the guys I was in the dorm with. His name was Turpin. I'm curious if you're related to that. He was from Norway. If you are related to the Turpins from Bob Jones, let me know. Reach out. Keep going. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your encouragement. He said it's all about control. They want to control our lives. He possibly believes that the church may be in bed with the government. I may have missed whatever some part of that discussion was. I'm sorry, I'm picking up. I'm not sure who it is that you're referring to. Cain's Catharsis, cool handle. Either the universe is eternal or a conscious mind willed into existence. Only two logical options. Yeah, at least from what we know so far. Yet I would go with the first one, of course. Yeah, I don't agree with all Bart thinks to be true, but I appreciate his scholarship, writing style, and knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate you so much too. Appreciate your support and your love. Mythicism is weird because in a way, 99% of us agree that nothing recorded about Jesus actually happened, but it's just a very harsh and radical position to say so bad there wasn't even a guy. Yeah, and I'll get into this another time, but yeah, I just think if there was a guy that did some really cool stuff, they would have written that there was this guy that did some really cool stuff. They wouldn't have to make up all this garbage about him. They wouldn't have to go back to all these other stories, like just tell us what he actually did. The fact that they had to make everything up about him, and the fact that was what people were doing all the time. They were making up these stories. It was very, very typical for the Greco-Roman mystery cults to make up epic stories about your God. Very few people would say, well, all these other gods, Mithras and the Greco-Roman pantheon, all these gods were real people. I mean, yes, you could say, well, maybe when someone talks about Dionysius, for hundreds of years, or whatever it was it thousands of years? I don't know, but for hundreds of years, they're worshiping Dionysius. Is it technically possible that even though Dionysius was just a made-up god, is it possible that at the very beginning, that somebody, when they first thought this up, they had in their mind that there's some guy he's really kind of powerful and he loves wine, and they kind of had him in mind. Is it possible? Yeah, but when you think of the character Dionysius, you don't think that character is real. You think that's a made-up, Greco-Roman mystery cult god. And I think Jesus is in the same category. Is it possible somebody thought of somebody? It's possible. I mean, but it's like that still doesn't make it like. But that's a different person. That's not who they wrote about. They didn't write about that person. That person was like a trigger in their mind for. I saw this guy today for a minute. He makes me think of a story to write, and you make up a story, but your whole story is made up of all these other things that you went to. It's not that guy. That's not him. If there was a guy, they would have told us what he actually did, in my opinion. And so much of it, you can trace like 99% of the Gospels either to rewrites of the Old Testament, or rewrites of Homer's Odyssey, or rewrites of the Greco-Roman mystery cult gods. When you can put 99% of it on something else, and you're like, maybe there's 1%, maybe that I can't link to something else, but I probably could if I knew more history, or the library at Alexandria had not burned down and we still had it, whatever. Yeah, it's just like there's no reason. There's no reason to make up these stories. Just tell us what the guy actually did. So, thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. I hope so too. Hoping so too. Definitely missing the beauty and love and affection of that part of life. It's not on the radar for any time soon, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully someday. I honestly love isolation, being alone. I can think more clearly. I was told for years isolation is the devil doing that to you. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, Miss Bo. Yep, very cool, very cool. Yeah, they have some good music. And see here, Joe Blog says, I've been officially reconstructing for 5 days now. My name is Joe, but my surname is obviously not Blogs. I cannot tell anyone. My life is filled with Christians. It's very difficult. I'm guessing you mean deconstructing. from what you wrote. Let's see here. 1 second. I'm guessing you meant deconstructing for 5 days. So if I'm interpreting it correctly, Joe, that is really brand new, and you've got a long way to go, obviously, in terms of just where you're going to land with it all. I would say, if I can give you my 2 cents, you don't have to land where we have. You don't have to be an atheist. You don't have to be an agnostic. I think it's the most accurate description of reality. But the biggest question I would start with is just, where did Christianity come from? Is it based on mythology? Therefore, is it mythology or not? And if you can figure that out, that no matter where you go from there, that'll be a big part of your journey. That'll help so much. Anyway, certainly wish you the best with your journey. Let's see here. Joe, you came to the right place. This is a safe place and many great videos and a great community. We have all been there, and we have absolute empathy for your situation. Yeah, great point. Great point. I love that, Ms. Bo. Yeah, we love people. We want to help people, and we have empathy for your situation, for sure. And Joe, you're in a good spot, but you're also in a dangerous spot. There's the danger for a lot of people in those shoes, for number one, Christians to hate on you. There's a lot of danger for people who are deconstructing to get very depressed at what they think they lost. The idea of, I can't believe that God isn't real. It's too much. Or certainly there's a lot of people that go back to thinking of, maybe I'm being tempted by the devil. I just don't want to bow my knee to a God. Or the devil's even got me. My pride is coming into play here. A lot of different ways that you're in a precarious spot. And so just take care of your heart, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. And if I can be of any help, my handle on Facebook, my personal page is @HarmonicTim. Please feel free to reach out and send me a message. Well, I think I've caught up with just about all the comments. Again, I'm sorry for some of this trolls tonight, but I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being a part of my life. I am celebrating, again, 5 years of being out of the Bible prison. I do have at least one video, if not 2, coming out shortly to talk about this, and I'm looking forward very much to sharing it with you. I think the second one, again, when I get it done, it's going to be pretty cool. People are going to be like, "That's really clever," and how the hell did you do that? But I can't wait to share some of that with you. But regardless, the big picture is, 5 years ago, I escaped Bible prison. Life is so much better on this side of it. To live an unexamined life is not the right way to live. It's not something you can be proud of. You have to examine, and you have to go out of your way, in my opinion, go out of your way to take your worldview, your current one, and try hard to disprove it. Say, if this is where I stand right now, this is where I think this is the most accurate description of reality, and this is the closest I can come to something I'm going to call truth. If that's where you're at, say to yourself, at this point, can I disprove this? Like, what evidence would go against that? What evidence would go against what I currently stand for? And how would I know? How would I know if I'm wrong? And just keep on being skeptical. Whether you're a Christian or an agnostic or even an atheist, how do you be skeptical about your own self and where you're coming from? And I like to think of it like what do they call it? The outsider test for faith that we've talked about a few times here. Pretend you're coming at this where you've never heard of Christianity before, and someone comes to you for the first time, and it sounds almost weird to you. Like, you need blood to be saved, and there's a God who's going to send you to hell, and you've never heard of hell or blood atonement or any of this stuff. It's just brand new to you. What would it sound like to fresh ears? And how would you know at that point? How would you know if you're on the right path, and if that's an acceptable worldview? And for a lot of us, it would just, the smell factor, like this just smells like mythology. That alone is a good starting point. But when you start to really dig into, in my opinion, the comparative mythology, where did this come from? It's so easy to say, yeah, this sounds weird. Your God sounds like a psychopath. But also, when I look a little deeper, I can see these stories are coming from earlier stories. They're clearly copies of copies. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. An hour and a half. It's so cool to be with you all. Thank you so much. I really appreciate just the way that you all have just shown so much kindness to me and to my family. Appreciate you being a part of my life, and I'll be in touch this week. I do have the kids a little bit more this week, so I'll be a little bit less available, but I will be on a couple live streams, a couple presentations, lots of really cool interviews that I've already done to publish. So I'm hoping to get them out the door soon. And keep in touch. Appreciate you all so much. Have a great night.